All right, so you want to make money with crypto, huh?
Yeah.
It sounds pretty ambitious.
Well, yeah, who doesn't?
That's fair, I guess. But it's more than just buying Bitcoin and hoping for the best, right?
Oh, yeah, way more. I mean, that's part of it for sure, but there are tons of ways to play the crypto game.
Exactly. And you've sent us a ton of sources, so we'll be pulling from something called, let me check, Texto Pagado.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Okay, so just to make sure we're on the same page here, you're already familiar with crypto, right? You know what Bitcoin is and all that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm past the beginner stage.
Perfect. So we can skip Crypto 101 and jump right into it. So let's start with something I've been hearing a lot about, HO dealing. But is there more to it than just like buying and holding and hoping for the moon?
HO dealing is more than just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best, yeah. It's really about having a long-term perspective. Like,
Wow.
What if you used a strategy like dollar cost averaging?
Okay, dollar cost averaging. I've heard of that with stocks, but I've never really thought about it with crypto. I mean, crypto is so volatile. Are you sure that even makes sense?
Yeah, especially because crypto is so volatile. Instead of trying to time the market perfectly, you're consistently investing over time.
Okay, that makes sense. Reduces the impact of those crazy swings we see all the time, right?
Right. It takes the emotion out of it. And diversifying beyond Bitcoin is also key. There are so many interesting projects out there, especially with your focus on sustainability.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard about Cardano. They seem to be making some big moves in that space. What do you think about them?
Cardano's doing a lot of interesting things, for sure. Strong team, solid roadmap, and they're big on peer-reviewed research, which is, pretty rare in the crypto world. They're not just hyping things up.
I like that. I like that they're focused on real-world problems, not just making a quick buck.
Right. And they're making inroads in developing countries, too. Huge potential for growth there.
But isn't it all pretty technical? Like, do I need to be a blockchain whiz to get involved with Cardano or any of these other altcoins?
Nah, you don't need to be a blockchain expert to invest, thankfully. You just need to understand the basics and find projects you believe in. And there are so many resources to help you learn along the way. You've got online courses, podcasts. I mean, you're listening to one right now.
Aha, girl.
And there are amazing communities out there, people who are passionate about this stuff and are happy to help. It's like a whole new world waiting to be explored.
That's a good point. Okay, so HO dealing is more than just sitting on your coins and hoping to the best.
Oh.
Got it. But what about for those of us who like, a little more action? Let's talk about trading. That's a whole different beast, right?
Oh, yeah. Trading is way more fast-paced.
And there are so many different ways to approach it. Day trading, swing trading, scalping. It's almost overwhelming.
True. It can be a lot to take in, and it's important to choose a style that matches your personality and risk tolerance. And, your time commitment, too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've done a little bit of stock trading, but crypto seems like a whole different animal. Like, what are some of the things that, someone who's already comfortable with the basics should be thinking about when it comes to crypto trading?
Well, technical analysis is key for sure. Understanding chart patterns, indicators, stuff like that.
See, that's what I mean. It all seems so technical and intimidating.
Yeah.
Like, I've dabbled with some basic indicators, moving averages, RSI and stuff. But it all feels a bit like a black box to me.
I totally get it. And honestly, some of those indicators can be confusing. Personally, I've found mass CD and Bollinger Bands to be really helpful for spotting buy and sell signals, especially when you factor in the overall market sentiment and news events. But those are just my go-tos. Everyone finds what works for them. Like, are you more into day trading? Or maybe a longer-term approach?
Oh, I'm definitely more of a long-term kind of guy. The thought of constantly monitoring charts and making split-second decisions all day gives me anxiety.
Yeah. Day trading is not for everyone. It's intense, requires a lot of focus and discipline. What about swing trading? You ride the waves a bit more. Capitalize on those price swings that can last for days or even weeks.
Swing trading? Maybe. It's still about buying low and selling high.
Right. Exactly. But it's more about identifying trends and patterns that play out over a longer time frame and having a solid exit strategy.
Okay, that sounds a bit more my speed. But I'm guessing it's not as simple as just like buying when the price dips and selling when it goes up, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be more to it.
Yeah. It definitely requires more nuance than that. You need a well-defined strategy, clear entry and exit points, stop-loss orders to manage risk, and finding the right trading platform that fits your needs is crucial too.
Oh, right. Speaking of platforms, I've mainly used Coinbase just for buying and holding. But for swing trading, I'd probably need something a bit more, well, sophisticated. What do you use?
I've had good experiences with Binance and Kraken.
Oh yeah, I've heard those names thrown around.
Yeah.
What makes them good for swing trading specifically?
Binance is known for its liquidity and features, advanced charting tools, tons of order types. And if you're into margin trading, they've got that too. Kraken's known for its security and regulatory compliance. So it depends on what you're looking for.
Lots to think about. Okay, so we've got HO dealing for the long haul, and now trading for the more, shall we say, active investors. But we're just getting started, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are all these other things like staking and mining, and honestly, they all seem pretty intimidating.
Don't worry, we'll break it all down.
I hope so. What even is staking? Is it something you do with a vampire?
No vampires here. Staking's actually pretty simple, conceptually. It's like earning interest on your crypto just by holding it. Like, those high-yield savings accounts everyone's talking about? It's kind of like that, but with crypto.
That sounds awesome, but how does it even work? Do I, have to lock up my crypto for a certain amount of time or something?
Well, yeah, usually there's a lockup period, but it varies depending on the cryptocurrency and the platform you're using.
Okay, so I'm putting my crypto to work for me, and in return, I get what? More crypto.
Exactly. You get rewards usually in the form of more of that same cryptocurrency. Think of it as, like dividends, but in the crypto world.
Interesting. So it's not just about buying and selling. I can actually earn passive income with my crypto.
Right. And it's becoming increasingly popular, especially as more cryptocurrencies move towards this proof-of-stake consensus mechanism. It's kind of a big deal.
Proof of stake. There's another one of those terms. Honestly, the jargon can be a bit much sometimes, but I'm starting to get the idea.
It's a learning curve for sure. But hey, that's why we're here, right?
Exactly. Okay, so staking sounds promising, but I have to admit I'm still a bit hesitant to lock up my crypto for any length of time, especially in such a volatile market.
Yeah, I get it. It's understandable to be cautious.
And besides, I'm not even sure where to start. Like, which cryptocurrencies offer staking? And how do I even choose a platform?
Great questions. There's a lot to consider when it comes to staking. The rewards, the lockup period, the security of the platform.
And probably a million other things I haven't even thought of.
Probably. But don't worry, we'll get to all of it. Have you looked into Ethereum 2.0? They're big on staking.
Ethereum 2.0, yeah. I know they switched to proof of stake a while back, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, I haven't delved too deep into it.
Yeah, they made the switch from proof of work, which was a pretty big deal in the crypto world, and now they're one of the leading platforms for staking. Lots of opportunities there. But, lots to learn too.
Definitely. It's also fascinating, but it can also feel pretty overwhelming sometimes. Like there's this whole secret world of finance that I'm just starting to peek into.
It's a rabbit hole for sure. But it's a fun rabbit hole to go down. And once you start learning about all the possibilities, it's hard to stop. Have you explored DeFi at all? Decentralized Finance.
DeFi. That rings a bell, but I can't say I fully understand it.
Yeah, it's where things get really interesting. Think of it as a parallel financial system built on blockchain technology without all the middlemen and gatekeepers.
Okay, that sounds kind of revolutionary, but also really complicated.
It can be, yeah. But it's also super exciting. Imagine a world where you can borrow, lend, and invest without needing a bank or a broker. That's the promise of DeFi.
Wow. Starting to see why you're so passionate about this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like a glimpse into the future of finance.
Okay.
But before we get too ahead of ourselves, I think we need to back up a bit. We haven't even touched on mining yet. And that's the foundation of it all.
Mining, yeah. That's where it all began. But it's definitely not as simple as it used to be. Back in the day, you could mine Bitcoin on your laptop. Those days are long gone.
Yeah, I've heard stories about people mining Bitcoin on their home computers years ago and making a fortune. But now it seems like you need a warehouse full of specialized equipment to even have a chance.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame now. You need specialized hardware called ASICs, which are designed specifically for mining, and they're not cheap.
ASICs, I'm guessing those aren't something I could pick up at my local electronics store.
Probably not. And you need a lot of them, and a lot of electricity to power them. It's become a pretty big industry.
So, if I'm not planning on building a mining farm in my basement, is mining even an option for me? Or is it just for tech giants and hardcore crypto enthusiasts?
Well, it depends on your comfort level with technology. How tech savvy would you say you are?
That's a good question. I'm comfortable with software and coding and all that, but when it comes to hardware, I'm pretty much a novice.
Gotcha. So you're more of a software guy. That makes sense. And yeah, building a mining rig from scratch definitely requires some serious technical skills.
No kidding. Like, I can barely build a Lego set without instructions, so I guess mining's probably not in the cards for me.
Well, not necessarily. There are other ways to get involved in mining without having to become a hardware expert. Like, have you ever heard of cloud mining?
Cloud mining? Vaguely. But I definitely need a refresher.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. It's basically renting mining power from a provider. So you get to participate in the rewards without having to deal with all the hassle of setting up and maintaining your own equipment.
Ooh, that sounds interesting. Like, I'm all for less hassle, but I'm guessing there are risks involved, right? Like, how do you even know if a cloud mining provider is legit?
You're right to be cautious. There are definitely risks with cloud mining. Some providers are scams, promising unrealistic returns, or just disappearing with your money. It's super important to do your research before you commit to anything.
Okay, noted. Definitely don't want to get scammed. So we've got HO dealing, trading, staking, mining, and I'm sure there are even more ways to make money with crypto that we haven't even touched on yet.
Oh yeah, we're just getting started. There's so much more to explore.
My head is spinning. It's amazing how much there is to learn in this space.
It's a constantly evolving world, that's for sure. But that's part of what makes it so exciting.
I'm starting to see that. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our crypto deep dive. But before we move on to the next phase, where we'll delve into some of the more complex and potentially even more lucrative strategies, I think we need a little break to process all this information.
I agree. Let's take a pause and let all this sink in.
We'll be right back after a short break to continue our crypto adventure.
Stay tuned.
So cloud mining, you were saying, it sounds kind of like outsourcing the headache.
It is, in a way. You're basically paying someone else to deal with the hardware, the electricity, all that.
Sounds tempting, but are there any catches? Like, is it even profitable?
Well, profitability depends on a lot of factors. You know, the cost of electricity, the hash rate, the price of Bitcoin.
Right. So it's not a guaranteed moneymaker.
Yeah.
What else should I be thinking about? Red flags, maybe? How do I even know if a cloud mining provider is legit?
Oh yeah, good point. You gotta be super careful. There are definitely some shady operators out there. First off, if it sounds too good to be true, you know the rest.
Yeah, if they're promising like a gazillion % returns, probably a scam.
Exactly. And look for transparency. They should be upfront about their fees, their equipment, their track record. Do your research.
Okay, due diligence is key. Got it. So cloud mining, a possibility, but not without its risks. Is it even worth it, you think? I mean, compared to just buying and holding?
It really depends on your goals. If you want to get hands-on with mining without the hassle of the hardware, it could be a decent option, but it's definitely not a passive investment.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got HO dealing, trading, staking, mining, and honestly, the more we talk, the more I realize there's so much to this whole crypto thing. It's kind of overwhelming.
It's a lot to wrap your head around for sure. But hey, that's why we're having this conversation, right? To break it all down.
Right. Okay, so taking a step back, it seems like the more potential reward, the more knowledge and research I need to put in, right? Like, there's no free lunch in the crypto world.
That's a pretty accurate assessment, yeah. The higher the potential return, the higher the risk. And the more you need to understand to navigate those risks effectively.
Makes sense. I guess there's no shortcut to success, even in the digital age.
Nope, no shortcuts. But that doesn't mean it's not worth exploring. Like, thinking about your interest in sustainability, what are you drawn to the most so far?
Well, I'm still pretty intrigued by staking. It just seems like the most hands-off way to make my crypto work for me. And I like the idea of supporting projects that are doing good in the world, like Cardano.
I hear more. Passive income with a purpose. Have you actually looked into Cardano's staking mechanism? They've got a pretty unique system.
I've skimmed some articles, but honestly, the technical details make my eyes glaze over. It's like a whole other language.
I totally get it. Blockchain jargon can be a beast. But remember, you don't need to be a coding genius to stake your Cardano. There are tons of resources out there that break it down step by step.
That's reassuring. Sometimes I forget that there's a whole community of people out there who are like fluent in crypto speak.
Oh yeah, the crypto community is amazing, super supportive, always willing to help.
Good to know. Okay, so staking is still on my radar. But what about this whole NFT thing? It seems like everyone's making millions selling JPEGs of Bored Apes. Is it really all it's cracked up to be?
Well, the NFT world is a wild ride, that's for sure. Remember when it first exploded? It felt like everyone was suddenly an art expert, buying and selling digital rocks for insane prices.
Yeah, it was crazy. I remember thinking, who would pay that much for a digital image that anyone can copy?
But then I started learning more about the technology, the whole concept of digital ownership, and it started to make a bit more sense.
Right. NFTs are more than just JPEGs. It's about owning a unique piece of digital history. And the technology has applications far beyond just art. Okay, so it's not just a fad.
Definitely not a fad. NFTs are changing how we think about ownership in the digital age. It's a paradigm shift. Like, what aspects of NFTs are you most curious about?
I'm fascinated by the potential for NFTs to empower creators, like musicians, artists, writers. They can connect directly with their audience and monetize their work in new ways. It's pretty revolutionary.
Yeah, it's cutting out the middleman. No more record labels or publishers taking a huge cut. And it's not just art either. Think about gaming. Owning unique in-game items, being able to trade them, it's a whole new level of engagement.
Whoa, that's mind-blowing. But I still can't wrap my head around some of those crazy prices, like millions of dollars for a digital ape. What's driving that kind of demand? Is it sustainable?
It's a mix of things, I think. Scarcity, exclusivity. Those ape NFTs are like digital status symbols. And there's a strong community aspect, too. Like, owning one gets you access to exclusive events and groups. As for sustainability, who knows? It's a speculative market, for sure. But the underlying technology is here to stay.
Okay, so maybe those crazy prices aren't completely irrational. But how do you even begin to assess the value of an NFT? It's not like traditional assets where you're going to look at, like, price to earnings ratios or whatever.
It's a whole new set of metrics. You got to consider things like the rarity of the NFT, the reputation of the creator, the strength of the community, and the potential utility of the NFT in the future. It's both an art and a science.
Sounds like a lot of research is required.
Oh yeah, definitely. Don't just jump into a project because it's hyped. Do your due diligence, understand the risks, and don't invest more than you can afford to lose.
Solid advice. Okay, so NFTs are definitely a mixed bag. High potential, but also high risk. And we haven't even talked about crypto lending yet. That's a whole other can of worms.
Right. It is, but it's also a really interesting way to potentially earn passive income. Essentially, you're lending your crypto to others and earning interest on those loans. It's like being your own bank.
That does sound intriguing, but also kind of scary. Like, what if the borrower defaults or the platform goes bankrupt?
Those are definitely risks to consider. That's why choosing a reputable platform is crucial. You need to look at their track record, their security measures, their interest rates. And as always, do your own research.
Research. Got it. But how does it even work? Do I, like, find someone on the internet and say, hey, want to borrow some Bitcoin?
Haha, not quite. There are platforms that connect borrowers and lenders. Think of them like digital marketplaces for crypto loans.
Okay, that makes more sense. Are there any specific platforms you recommend?
There are a few big players in the space. BlockFi, Celsius, Nexo, they all have their pros and cons. Personally, I've had good experiences with Celsius and BlockFi. Their interest rates are pretty competitive, and they're transparent about their operations.
Those names sound familiar. I'll have to check them out. But isn't the whole crypto lending thing kind of risky? Like, what about regulations? What if the government decides to crack down on it?
That's a valid concern. The regulatory landscape is still evolving, and there's definitely some uncertainty around crypto lending. It's something to keep an eye on for sure.
Definitely. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our deep dive. From cloud mining to NFTs to crypto lending, it seems like there's a whole universe of possibilities within the crypto world.
There is. And we're just scratching the surface. But before we get too lost in the weeds, I think it's time to step back and try to make sense of it all.
I agree. It's a lot to process. We need to figure out what it all means, what the key takeaways are for our listeners.
Exactly. That's what we'll do in the final part of our deep dive. We'll synthesize all this information, highlight the most important points, and try to offer some practical advice for anyone looking to make money with crypto.
Sounds good. Let's wrap up this part and get ready for the grand finale. All right, final stretch. Time to make sense of all this crypto chaos.
Chaos. I think it's more like a jungle. So many paths to explore, so many hidden treasures.
Maybe. But like any jungle, it's full of dangers too, right? I mean, we've covered everything from HO dealing to yield farming, and honestly, I'm still not sure I fully understand what yield farming even is.
It's a lot to take in, for sure, but that's the fun of it, isn't it? The crypto world's constantly changing, always something new to learn.
True. So let's put on our thinking caps and try to distill all this info into something, well, digestible. What are the key takeaways here? What does our listener really need to know?
Well, first and foremost, I think the biggest lesson is that there's no one right way to approach crypto. What works for one person might be a disaster for another.
Right. It's all about finding what fits your personality, your risk tolerance, your goals. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure story crypto edition.
Exactly. And that brings us to the second big point. Knowledge is your best weapon in this jungle. The more you understand about the technology, the strategies, the risks, the better equipped you'll be to make smart decisions.
I've definitely learned that firsthand during this deep dive. I mean, I thought I knew a thing or two about crypto, but it turns out I was just scratching the surface.
It's a deep rabbit hole, that's for sure. But the more you learn, the more confident you'll become, and the less likely you are to fall for scams or make costly mistakes.
Speaking of mistakes, I think that's a good segue to our next takeaway. Risk management is key. Never invest more than you can afford to lose, and always be prepared for the unexpected.
Absolutely. Crypto is volatile, things can change quickly, so you gotta be smart, you gotta be strategic.
And don't be afraid to adapt, right? Like, what works today might not work tomorrow. The crypto world is all about evolution.
Right on. Be flexible, be open to new ideas, and don't be afraid to ask for help. The crypto community is full of amazing people who are willing to share their knowledge and experience.
That's one of the things I love about this space, this sense of community, the shared passion. It's pretty inspiring.
I agree. It's like a global movement, people from all walks of life coming together to build a better future.
Okay, so we've got our key takeaways. Find your own path, knowledge is power, manage your risk, be adaptable, and embrace the community. It sounds like a recipe for success to me.
I think so too. But remember, this is just the beginning of your crypto journey. There's always more to learn, more to explore.
Exactly. This deep dive has been amazing, but it's just a taste of what's out there. So go forth, intrepid listener, and discover the wonders of the crypto world.
And remember, always do your own research, stay informed, and never stop learning.
Thanks for joining us on this wild ride. Until next time, stay curious, stay crypto savvy, and as always, dive deep.